Hello and welcome to Save Your Sanity. I'm Dr. Rhoberta Shaler. I'm delighted that you're here. If you've visited with me before, I'm glad you're back. And if you just found me, I'm glad you did that too. Tonight we're going to be talking about something you may have always wondered about. You may be very familiar with it, might not have had a name for it. Going to take care of that tonight. Make sure that you have a name for this. And what we're talking about tonight is this very important concept of recognizing reactive abuse. And it's how emotional abusers push you to it, blame you for it, and then shame you with it. It's a cycle, and it is such a sad cycle, a cycle of reactive abuse. So a whole episode tonight on that one thing so that you will really see it when it's happening and know what to do about it, what to do with it, and how to make decisions about it. Very, very important. And so there's that. I also want to thank those of you who have been supporting Save Your Sanity podcast, that it's a very simple thing to do, a one-time donation or a monthly small donation, $5 or $10, really appreciated. It really helps so that I am not paying for everything. That really helps me, and it helps us stay continuously providing podcasts too. You can do that at patreon.com/saveyoursanity. Patreon.com/saveyoursanity. So housekeeping things. You know where to find me at forrelationshiphelp.com. It's always on the screen, and you can always find me there, forrelationshiphelp.com, and the YouTube channel by the same name, FOR Relationship Help. So we're going to talk about recognizing reactive abuse. So what is it? So I made a definition for you, and it's when you react to their abuse and they accuse you of abusing them. Do you know that one? I bet you're very familiar with it if you're listening to my podcast. It's when they get you going and you react to their abuse, and then they tell you you are being abusive. Or to put it in a very straightforward way, it's reactive abuse is when an emotional abuser pushes you to the edge and tells you you're unstable when you fall off. It's your fault again. And you know how many million times an emotional abuser will find a way to tell you everything's your fault. So when they push you to the edge, the end of your tether, and wherever the end of your tether is, that magical place that we all talk about, but when they push you to that edge and then they tell you you're unstable because you fell off, when they're the ones that pushed you there, this is reactive abuse. So I'm going to talk about it in various forms and spend a good deal of time on it, because you wonder why sometimes you snap, you really lose it, and you know why, of course, you were pushed to the edge, but then you think, what good did it do? How did that possibly help me? Usually it's worse. Usually much worse. And so you're being blamed for something you didn't start. And as you defend yourself, you're blamed for more and then gaslighted in the whole situation. As they misread the situation and read their read back to you, and then there you are. You have just been told you're abusive to an abuser who was abusing you, which is why you sounded abusive. And you're already exhausted. You're worn down, torn down, put down. You're just emotionally drained and you're tired. And then you get into one of these conversations and you snap. And maybe you scream, maybe you rage, maybe you call names, maybe you blame, maybe you get everything out that you ever wanted to say, everything you've ever resented or was unfair or frustrates you. That's reactive abuse. You're reacting to the abuse. And the reason I'm doing this episode tonight is because I had a client this week who said, yes, I engage in reactive abuse. And I thought, wow, I've never done an episode on reactive abuse, so let's do that. Now, a healthy partner, when you get to the edge, would reach out and say, honey, I think you need to take a breath. I see that you're at the end of your rope, and I'll let me help you. But oh no, not a hijackal, one of those toxic, difficult people. The hijackal is delighted because now they're just rubbing their hands together. Now I can use the abuse against you. As if there wasn't enough abuse when you react to the abuse, and then they blame you for reacting and make you out to be the abuser. Isn't that just the way it goes? Is that striking a chord within you, that this seems so familiar? And you're hoping that they will see your pain. You're really hoping that they will see your pain. And they don't. They don't. They don't want to. They don't want to do anything with it. They don't want to hear about it because it's all about them.com, right? So they don't want any part of that. And so they just want to use it against you. And then they build a whole narrative, a whole story about it. You'll never guess what he or she did. And, everything was fine. And then all of a sudden they went off the deep end. And, I'm really concerned about their stability. I'm concerned about their mental health. And you just have to know all I have to put up with this person. Now that's the hijackal speaking. They've created this story about the one incident or two incidents where you blew up. Meanwhile, they blow up on a regular basis. But no, they're going to make a story about you doing it. And it becomes a big story. They share with people. They like to triangulate. They like to go to your friends and your family and say, this happened. I just thought you'd want to know. I've got it handled, but I really think this person is dangerous. This person is, perhaps missing a few marbles. Maybe things are going off the rails here. Maybe we need to get them some help to take care of them because they are abusive and they are terrible. Does that sound at all familiar? I mean, it's just an incredible downward spiral that you can get into. And so towards the end of the podcast, I'm going to give you some solid ways to keep out of that downward spiral. But they want to push you there. They delight in pushing you there. And if you go there, then you're not so delighted with yourself. Because the big story is you lost it, you're crazy, nothing about them. They aren't going to talk about the way they provoked you or their inadequacies or their injustices. Oh no, it's just going to be all about how difficult you are, how you're losing it, how you can't be trusted. And so they bring the spotlight back on themselves. What a surprise. So they got the spotlight on themselves now. They're the one who's being abused. And oh, what they have to go through and put up with living with you. And the story is so wrong. And this happens too when you go to a therapist with them. All of a sudden, you are the abuser. Have you noticed that? That's why it's really important to go to someone like me who specializes in this, because otherwise, how is someone going to see it? Now, some people will see it. There's lots of great professionals out there, but it's easier for those of us who work with it all the time to see it. But this business about making you into the abuser because you're reacting to their abuse is shady. It's really shady and it's nasty. And yes, you did lose it. And because you're not like the hijackal, you own up to it and you feel badly about it. Heaven knows the hijackal doesn't feel badly about it when they blow up, but you do because you're healthier. And so you admit it. And then there's a problem, because even that can be used against you. Now there's a problem. They're going to use that against you too, that you admitted it. There, see, you did it, and you say you did it. And what's that about? That's crazy. You're crazy. And on and on and on it goes. And so they never forget. They'll bring it up over and over and over again. They just never forget. In fact, it becomes their one big story to tell, that you lost it. That they can't believe how you spoke to them, the things that you said. Who would put up with this? What a long-suffering person I am to put up with your abuse. And they take no responsibility for the fact that they were the pushers that pushed you to the edge, and then you went over. So abusers rely on this reactive abuse to push your buttons and to get power over you and to manipulate you. And this is why it's so important to see it. And that's why I wanted to do this episode, because you need to see the cycle. And you know, I have a course called Seeing the Cycles. I don't talk about reactive abuse in there, but seeing the cycles of the patterns that these people engage in can be very useful to you. And if you'd like to take that course, you can go to forrelationshiphelp.com and then just click on the products button and you'll see the store there. It might say store too. So they really like to bring this up. They like to push your buttons. And you know when they particularly like to do it? In front of the kids. Sick as it is, that's what they like to do. They'll push your buttons and then they'll do the eye-rolling thing. Look what we have to put up with. And whether it's a male or a female hijackal, the same thing happens, you know. This is an absurdity. We shouldn't have to put up with this. Little did they bother to take responsibility for the fact that they threw the first gambit down. No, they don't take responsibility for that. They just want to talk about, oh, look how you got your knickers in a twist. Look how you are spewing forth. Look how your anger is uncontained. So they love to do that in front of the kids. They like to do that wherever they can make a scene. And that happens. And then they use it as endless proof that you've lost it. Endless proof that you can't be trusted. And they'll even make themselves out to be the martyrs in their stories. You've probably had that reaction from them that, oh my goodness, what they put up with, how they're being abused, why they don't stay home. Well, of course I cheat. Who would stay with this? I mean, this is volatile. This is awful. Why would I ever stay around when this is happening? And then they tell the story again. Well, who wouldn't leave you? I mean, obviously you're a wreck or a nag or a volcano or you're unstable or you're just plain crazy. Have you ever had that thing where you're dating and you date several people and you ask, you know, well, tell me about your life. And somebody leans into a litany of, oh, you know, I've been in four long-term relationships. Every one of them was crazy. Now that, my friends, is the definition of a great big red flag. If somebody says that all their exes have been crazy, know that you may well be dealing with a hijackal or a hijackal about to be or want to be. Because who was the constant person in all those relationships? And then they're saying it was everybody else's fault. Watch for that if you're dating. Just be very careful with that because they want to be able to blame you. They desperately want to be able to blame you for everything. And when you react, when you just blow up, when you lose it, they are just delighted. They're absolutely delighted. And you know what else they like to do? At that moment, they have the big brainwave to call Child Protective Services. Well, I can't have my children subjected to this abuse. Look at this. This person, this other parent flew off the handle. It was so bad. It was so wrong. The children shouldn't have to see this. I need to get the children away from this. This stuff happens. It happens every day of the week, everywhere. and it is wrong in every possible way, and yet somehow, with their manipulative skills and their charm skills, they victim playing skills, they tend to convince people that that is the accurate thing that happened. And that is just so sad. They tell their stories and they keep it up and they keep reinforcing it. And then they may go to the next step and get a protective order against you. And it turns into a great big he said, she said, he said situation that nobody who wasn't in the room with the two of you can possibly know what's what. I'm talking about the court. I'm talking about the Child Protective Services. They don't know. They weren't there. So whomever can tell the better story often ends up prolonging the agony of being without your children or being concerned that your children are not well taken care of, and definitely not with you. And it all can stem, not only from, but it can stem from this reactive abuse, where you are reacting to their abuse and then they say you're abusing them. Crazy making, absolutely crazy making. And it happens. So they whisk the kids away to safety. Safety. Now you know that hijackal parents don't have a great deal of love to give. They don't want to be bothered with the children in so many cases. They just don't want you to have them. So when you get into these downward spirals, it's really important to get some help because you need experienced help with all of that. And you know where you can find me. I'll just remind you that you can go to beaclient.com and we can talk, because I've had this experience with so many clients and I can help you figure it out a lot faster than if you try and figure it out for your first time yourself. So go to beaclient.com. So we're talking about mega manipulation here. Big time manipulation. They push you, you react, they blame you. Now the question is, do you accept the blame? Well, that's where your choice is. Yes, you snapped, blew up, erupted. You can own that. But step back. Don't spend any time there. Step back and see the bigger picture. It was orchestrated manipulation. It was planned. I'm going to push you here and nudge you there and bop you there. And then look at you, you unprincipled, undisciplined being angry that I pushed you and prodded you and nudged you and bopped you a few times, and then you react to it, and then you're a crazy person. You're a crazy person. It's so sad. It's so convoluted. It is so manipulated, because hijackals are master manipulators. They are the master puppeteers, they think, that they're just there pulling all your strings, making everything happen. And they also believe that you don't see it. You don't know it's happening. And I want you to see it clearly, because they are making nasty things happen. And they always believe they're the smartest person in the room. So we need all this inside that I'm giving you because they are not the smartest person in the room, but they think so. But I want you to see what they're doing, because what they do by abusing you and then you reacting and then them telling you that you're abusive to them is the ultimate blame shifting that I've spoken of in another episode of Save Your Sanity. They just shift the blame from themselves back onto you. Cycle complete. Now you're the crazy person. You're the abusive person. You're the wrong person. And they, oh no, they're just innocent victims. So we need some insights here on how to respond to them rather than react to them. Because reaction is thoughtless expression. But responding means engage brain first. You know, I see what you're doing. I'm not jumping into your game nor into your trap. We're going to do this differently. So after you have reacted, after you have snapped, after you've said things, you feel bad when you calm down. And that may cause you to play right into the abuser's hands, because now you're going to be asking for forgiveness. You're going to be telling them how sorry you are. You're going to be taking the blame for things you didn't do. You may be begging for them to give you another chance. And what they've done is manipulate you into making them the star player again. So you want to not react. You want to respond. So you won't waste the energy of reacting and then going into that downward spiral of feeling really badly about it, and then maybe apologizing for things that you shouldn't be apologizing for, and then they getting more power over you. So I want you to see the destructive patterns, see the manipulation, just step way back and see how this works. See how often it has worked. And then say no more. We're not going to have any more of this. I am not going to bite. I am not going to go for that. I am going to exhale, step back, look at the bigger picture. I remember what this is about. No, I'm not going to get sucked into that. Never again. Because they can turn you into someone you don't recognize, but only if you let them. You don't want to feel doubly bad. They abuse you, and then you abuse yourself because you're beating yourself up for the fact that you engaged in reactive abuse. No, you don't want that. You have to stop. Because if they turn you into somebody that you don't know, you don't want to be that person who reacts and spills over and explodes and name calls and does all those things. Because if you are the one who is going to take responsibility for your behavior, and they never will, you will then maybe be too much blaming yourself for what you did and not understanding that they were the ones who pushed the button that set you over the edge. And we have to see that clearly. Because an abuser wants you to second guess yourself. They want you to question your sanity, and they want you to question your own character. And they will gaslight you in order to have you do that. And so they will manipulate you further. So that choice, you can see the pattern for the manipulation it is, or you can accept further blame and shame. I hope you won't do the second one. I know you might feel it because you're an empathetic person and you realize that that wasn't like you, and you went to that place and you see that you got caught in that trap. But don't accept further shame and blame from them. Right? Don't spend time there, because reactive abuse is something that hijackals count on. They just really count that they could push you to the edge and tell you that you are that unstable, and then they can push you over the edge, and then they'll blame you for falling. How could you be so silly? How could you be that unstable? What's wrong with you? Are you nuts? Going off like that for no good reason? And then you start second guessing yourself. So if it's familiar, notice that. And you know who's also really good at this? Hijackal parents. They enjoy doing this to their kids. They enjoy making their children cry or angry or push them into tears or tantrums and then make them wrong for doing it. It starts really early. It's a pattern. If you had a hijackal parent and they use that pattern on you, when you get a hijackal partner, it's so familiar. You still don't like it, but it is so familiar. And that's important to notice. A lot of times when I'm working with my clients, they say, well, do we really have to go back to childhood? Yes, because things happened to you then, and those strings were put in place. And when the strings get plucked when you're older, all of your whole life full of strings resonates. We have to find the origins of those things so that we can change the narrative. It's really important. So, hijackal parents enjoy seeing their kids cry. One of the big gaslighting statements, I think, about parents to their children, hijackal parents to their children, is their children are crying, and a hijackal will say something like, "Stop that crying, or I'll give you something to cry about. I want to be the author of your pain. I want to be the reason that you're crying. Whatever reason you have is not nearly as good as the one that I will be the author of." You see how awful that is? That's the kind of thing that happened to us perhaps when we were children. And then it gives us certain emotional frameworks that we have to unearth and alter so that we will not be caught in these when we're older and will not be repeating them, wishing we didn't, hoping for it to get better. We will make it better. So it's a good thing that you react to the emotional abuse. That's good. It means that, you've got some gumption, but you want to respond to the emotional abuse. You want to see it in your own mind. You want to call it, but don't beat yourself up for it. And then refuse to fall off the edge. No matter how many scars you get on your tongue of things you really wanted to say, refuse to go over the edge. They push, they push, they push, and you don't move. You just observe. Okay, and you say to yourself, they're pushing, they're pushing, they're pushing. I choose not to go there. I choose not to go there. Because when you react, it's exactly what they want. But when you respond, it needs to be what you want. Here's how I want to be behaving. I don't want to become that volcano that went off. I refuse to become that volcano. I am in charge of myself. So even though I feel the feelings and I'm familiar with the pattern, I am no longer going to go there. I am going to stay strong. I am not going to fall off the edge. I am going to close my mouth. I am not going to say what's on my mind when I'm in a heightened state of emotional arousal. And when you do that, you can breathe yourself down, exhale a lot, and that reactive abuse is getting you to blame shift onto yourself. And once you recognize that pattern, I hope you'll say no to it, because that goes from blaming them for the abuse to blaming yourself for reacting. And that's a double whammy that you don't need to take. You need to break this pattern in your head right now. See it clearly. And I know, you're going to practice. It's not going to be instant. But see the pattern and then say, that person is prodding me toward the edge, prodding me toward the edge. Nah, I think I'll just sit here for a while and let them spin, let them do, let them blame, let them do all the things they need to do. And when they don't get a reaction from you, observe what happens. They escalate. Or then they give you the silent treatment, hoping that you will beg them to speak to you. Don't do that. When a hijackal gives you the silent treatment, rejoice in the silence. Enjoy the silence. Don't ask them to talk to you, because that's just why they're doing it. Don't give them what they want. So we need to break these patterns, because that's the basis of why people who are with hijackals ask me if they themselves are the hijackals, because of this whole reactive abuse cycle. And once you see the cycle clearly, now what are you going to do about it? This reactive abuse thing is a favorite move of people with narcissistic tendencies, sociopathic tendencies, psychopathic tendencies, some borderline tendencies. So you see that, and you become the abused, abusive one in their minds. But they will never see you as having been abused by them. There will always be another reason. So it's really time to see it all clearly and it's time to change it. Don't react. I know that's hard. Don't engage. I know that's hard too. And don't put up with it. I know that's hard too, but I can help you make it easier because you need to have an exit plan from the abuse. It is so important. So very important to say, I am not going to be part of this cycle anymore. This cycle is being artificially created by a hijackal, and I am not going to be manipulated by the hijackal any longer. I am not going to get caught in that cycle of the hijackal abuses me, and therefore I eventually snap and get angry. I say things, and then the hijackal tells me that I'm the abusive one. That's reactive abuse. And now you know. Now you know, and you can say no to it. And I sincerely hope you will. And if you need help saying no to it, you know where you can find me. Just go to beaclient.com, and I am happy to help you. That's my one-time new client 1-hour session for only $97. Beaclient.com, and I will help you with that. Help you to see it, and then we can work together and walk through it together. Because you don't want to be in these toxic relationships that are constantly pushing your buttons for no good reason, for no healthy reason, for no advantage. Nothing is going to happen that's going to get any better. It only gets worse. So you need new strategies to try. Sometimes that'll change things. And if it doesn't, then we need to make other plans. All these things are supremely important for your well-being and for the well-being of your children, because remember, your children are watching you always, and they're learning how to be in a relationship. They're learning how to handle relationships, and you need to give them a good example. So reactive abuse, big important topic, and if it's happening to you and happening within you, I hope you see the cycle and say no to it going forward. I'm Dr. Rhoberta Shaler. I'm so glad that you were with me. I hope you'll return. Invite your friends to come along. Go to my Facebook page, facebook.com/hijackals. Enjoy all the graphics there, the memes. I put them all there so you can share them. Go and share them in the Facebook groups you belong to. Help other people see these patterns. And have them for your own reminding. Like, I want to remember that one particularly. There are many, many of them, but they will help you. And if you need my help, you can go to my website, forrelationshiphelp.com, FOR relationshiphelp.com, and my YouTube channel by the same name. And if you'd like to enjoy these podcasts on a regular basis, subscribe. Just push the button and subscribe wherever you like to get your podcasts. So until we speak again, take very good care of yourself. Do not get involved in reactive abuse. Learn to sit tight, filter, stay strong, and keep your mouth closed when somebody is trying to bait you into reactive abuse. Talk soon. Hi, how are you? So glad to see so many folks with us tonight. Let's see who's here. Diane, hi. And you're welcome. Diane says hi, hello, and thank you. You're welcome. And Nancy, thank you for sharing this. You too are welcome. Hi, Katerina. Nancy, I don't know what you said exactly to, but apparently something struck a chord. Hi, Stella. You said, this resonates with me. The hijackal started an argument which escalated to many nasty texts, discarding and telling his Facebook fans I was abusing him. Oh, golly, no. That he's the eternal victim. Oh, don't they like to play that card? They love to play that card. Even when it's not true, even if you haven't engaged in reactive abuse, they're going to tell people that you're the problem. Nasty, bad, sad, I'm sorry that happened to you. Yes, Nancy, blame shifting. All the time. Blame shifting, blame shifting, blame shifting. And last week I was talking about past casting, how that goes. You're in this situation, all things are breaking loose, and then you cast your mind back to a better time and pretend you're still there. Or you remember some time when that hijackal said that they loved you and now they're behaving in an abusive manner, but you want to hold on to, but they loved you. You cast your mind to the past and try to grab a little shred of hope somewhere. You don't want to be doing that. Hi, Maria. Oh, you missed the last 2 weeks. I see what you're doing. Yes. Ekaterina says, toxic parents, they push you, you react, they punish you. Yes, this is exactly about the day of my graduation. My mom did not see how I got my diploma. They provoke intentionally to spoil your happiness. Yes, they do. And another piece that's in that bit of story that you shared, Ekaterina, is that hijackals, particularly those with the most narcissistic tendencies, cannot bear to share the limelight. So if you are celebrating something, a success or something you've achieved, and you're very happy about it, they will ruin it for you. They cannot bear to share that limelight. So they take the focus on themselves, whether they do something good or they do something bad. They will ruin your celebration. They'll ruin holidays too. They'll ruin anything that is not about them. So I'm sorry that happened to you. Stella says, he called me a narcissist and telling women on Facebook that I wear a mask. He was describing himself. Well, if you're thinking about some psychological mask, yes, that's probably true, because as I say so frequently, hijackals paint a public picture of perfection, while at home they're providing a private place of pain. So they do wear a mask in public, for sure. Nancy says, been there. I don't know when you put that in there, Nancy, but okay, something else struck a chord. Stella says, when I was in the relationship, I couldn't see or understand his manipulation, but now I'm out of it. I'm starting to see it. Great. Good stuff. High five to you. The clearer you see it, the more annoyed you will be, and the more annoyed you will be, the more resolve you have that it'll never happen again. So that's a good thing. And just a note to everyone, if you haven't been with me before, this loop that happens with StreamYard is if you put a comment in Facebook or YouTube and you want me to see it, from when you hit send to when I actually see it is about 20 seconds. So if you have a question on any topic that has to do with toxic relationships, you can put it in there. I'm happy to answer it. If you have any response to the podcast that I just did, definitely put it in there so that we won't lose anything, because after 30 seconds with nothing showing up in the chat, then I disappear. I believe that you have had your questions answered and you have everything that you need from me tonight. So I just want to remind you that there is that lag. So if you do have a question, feel free to ask it. I'm happy to answer it, whether it relates to reactive abuse or not. Maria said, our children are learning what to tolerate and what not to tolerate by watching us. Yes, it's very true. Children are watching. Even before they have language, they are watching. They're watching you in space. They're listening for your tone of voice. They're looking at the looks on your face, the gestures that you make. They're learning whether they're safe. They're learning whether the world is safe. All of these things are going into children. Unwittingly, they have no filter. And so it's all going in. And we bring children into the world. We need to take care of them. They do not need to be abused, and they do not need to observe abuse. And this is very important if we say we love our kids. And so even if you can't leave just yet, at least get help to do things differently, to find ways that will be more effective, things to try, so that it won't get worse. Maria asks, are hijackals the ones in the personality groups that play the victims the most? Yes, they actually are. Covert narcissists are great victim players. Nobody cares what I think. Nobody cares about me. I am just invisible to the world. Never mind. Don't think about me. Go on without me. There'll be a lot of that going on. I understand we just lost the Facebook feed. I just got a notice about this. Hopefully it will try to kick in. We'll see what's going on there. Oh dear, I can't get back. Go away. Huh. All right, I can't see your I can't see your, there we go. There we go. Back to your comments. So yes, Maria, these are the ones who play the victims a lot. And this whole business, the setup of reactive abuse, getting you to get angry at their abuse and then blaming you for it, is definitely a setup and definitely guaranteed to give them a story they can tell about how terrible you are. So it's an important thing. Leni, hi. When I reacted with tears, he replied, "Your tears don't affect me." Wow. Yes, and it's true, they don't. I was working with a person who was a professed narcissist quite a while ago, and he quite frankly said to me, when my children were young and they cried and cried and cried, he said, I would happily walk the halls with them because their tears did not bother me at all. I was not the least bit concerned about the baby, but I was happy to walk. And pretty much that's the way it is when you're older too, when they're older too. Like they don't care. They simply don't care. You can be crying and they're smirking. You know, I did an episode with a facial decoder a while ago. You can look at it. It was last year. And I asked him, I said, I see all the time this, what I call the Hijackal Smirk. It is, you know, this sort of smart, like, look on their face. I said, in facial decoding of what's actually going on there, what are the micro expressions that this is? And he said that that smirk is a combination of anger and disdain. And when you put anger and disdain together, you get contempt. That smirk that they have, that sort of mini smile with a downturned lip, is just contempt for you. Like, how could you be so foolish? How could you be so stupid? It's just contemptuous. And that's what they actually do, so that your tears don't affect them. They really don't. If they're close to diagnosable, the tears will not affect them. If they're diagnosable, they definitely won't affect them. And their tears actually are read by them as they're successfully having power over you. Like, look at how upset he or she is. Look what I've done. Aren't I powerful? It's very convoluted. It's very complex. And it's very sad. So, I'm sorry that happened to you, Leni. And Maria says, a very common phrase from covert hijackals is, I don't care. Well, it's a common phrase from all hijackals because they really don't care. If it's not about them, they don't care. And it's really hard to get your head around. I know how hard it is to get your head around because of the whole love bombing thing. At the beginning of the relationship, they painted this big picture of caring about you. They listened to you. They responded to you. They did wonderful things for you, and you thought they were perfect. That's the pretend person. The one that you're experiencing the abuse from, that's the real person. So it's really difficult to get your head around the fact that they don't care, but they don't care. If it's not about them, they don't care. They care if it affects them, but they don't care about you. And yes, there are degrees of hijackals. You know, I talk about white, gray, and black hat hijackals. You know, people who have been raised by hijackals maybe not know any other way to respond, but they feel badly about how they behave. Those can be white and gray hat hijackals. They can change. But black hat hijackals, they can change. They don't want to change because they don't see anything wrong with them and they feel that they're righteously correct at all times. So it's a calibration. It's not all black and white. It's white and gray and black. So Diana says, hi, is it possible for someone to not be a narcissist, just an aggressive abuser person? Yes, because narcissism is actually a diagnosis. But people who are abusive usually are people who are very troubled, who don't want to admit that they're very troubled, so they turn all the trouble on you. So whether or not we have a label for it is not really the important thing. That's exactly why I created the term hijackal, so that we would all, without any need to be a clinical mental health professional, we would all have a way to describe the patterns, traits, cycles, and behaviors of these people that we're experiencing. You know, I went through it. My parents were hijackals. Of course, I married one. I had to divorce one and co-parent with one, and I attracted other ones throughout my life, before my marriage and after. And you have to learn to erase all of that and expunge it from your system and see the patterns and see your responses and do all of that. But yes, there are people who are aggressive and abusive, and they are hijackals. They simply are. So it doesn't matter if they're narcissistic or psychopathic or sociopathic or borderline or histrionic. Those are just degrees, strong degrees that can be diagnosed to talk about different combinations of traits. But we can talk here about hijackals because they have these traits in different combinations and different amounts of different traits. Some of them use them every day. Some of them use them twice a year. All of that happens. So I hope that's helpful, Diana. But they are aggressive and abusive, and many of them are also passive-aggressive. But not all passive-aggressive people have narcissistic traits. There are people who are just passive-aggressive. So Stella asks, are the hijackals doing all this on purpose? The ex I dated acted like the nicest guy. He just gets upset. He would say sorry, but nothing changed. Well, doing it on purpose, everything that they do is for the purpose of gain for themselves. So if they're doing it on purpose, they're doing it to get something for themselves, to get their needs met, to be validated, to get the adoration that they want, to get the attention that they want. So from that point of view, they're doing it on purpose. But from this other point of view, you can decide what yourself. I mean, if you can notice that a hijackal does not behave the way they behave with you out in the world or in their job or whatever, then you can see that they are choosing their behaviors. Because they know that if they treated the people at work the way they treat somebody at home, it would never fly. So they choose their behaviors. So if we want to talk about them doing it on purpose, you can decide for yourself on that one. But one important thing that you said here, Stella, is he says he gets upset and he says he's sorry, but nothing changes. That's the big deal. You know, somebody who apologizes and doesn't make a change is not apologizing, they're appeasing. They're just trying to get you off your back in that moment. And so they're saying something to appease you, to make you feel better, to give you some hope that something will change. But when they don't change, notice that, and notice that there wasn't an apology, and say, this doesn't fly. It's not okay at all. Maria said, imagine when the I don't care comes from family and then they say they love you. Yeah, I do know that one really, really well. They don't care, but they know that they're supposed to love you. That it would be terrible in the eyes of the public to not love you. So they say that they do, but their behavior gives them away. Behavior is everything. If you've been with me for a while, you know that one of the big things that I say so frequently is always believe behavior. ABB, my formula. Always believe behavior. Don't believe the words, believe the behavior. And if the words and the behavior match, great. But when you're dealing with hijackals, the words and the behavior won't match. So always believe the behavior. And if you do that, you can really save yourself a lot of pain. Because when you believe the behavior, even when you don't want to, you really want to believe the words. But if you care enough about yourself and can come to that place where you believe the behavior and you take responsible action after you have believed the behavior, you are saving yourself a world of hurt. And it's really important because you matter and you don't deserve to be abused. You simply don't. And so it's an important thing to understand that you need to say no to abuse. So very important. So I see that there aren't any more comments or questions here. I hope that I've successfully answered the ones that were put in the chat. I'm sorry that we lost the Facebook people, but there is some kind of glitch happening at Facebook just now. So I will go in and reshare this with the Facebook folks. But in the meantime, take very good care of yourself. You know, I always say this, but I so mean it. And you're welcome, Maria. I so mean it. Take very good care of yourself because you are demonstrating to yourself that you matter. And remember, you teach people how to treat you, and you're 100% responsible for teaching people how to treat you. So treat them teach them to treat you as though you matter, because you do. Talk soon. Take good care of yourself.